session. I call this regularly scheduled work session to order. We welcome those of you who are here in person and those of you who are joining us via YouTube. Dr. True, I believe you had the first item on the agenda for us.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. We do want to take a little bit of time as we start our meeting tonight, our work session tonight, just to celebrate you as a board. Again, this is National School Board Appreciation Week, January 24th to the 30th. Tennessee School Boards Association helps us to celebrate that. We just wanted to take a minute to thank you. It's a great time really to focus on the role that you, our elected board, plays in our community and in our schools, and to really recognize you for the dedication and the work that you do for our students, for our families, and for the employees of Kingsport City Schools. For our listeners, we did just want to point out that you may think that a BOE member's commitment is just a couple hours a month at meetings, but it's really much more than that. There are some official and defined responsibilities, which are things like to employ the superintendent, set salaries, grant tenure, prepare a budget, set policies, and then also to help establish and carry the vision of educational excellence here in Kingsport and across Tennessee. But there are also several things done by our board that are outside of these defined roles that may not be such as obvious. The work you do going into schools, visiting with teachers and students, really seeing what's happening and talking to our community, working with our administration and the community to support and advocate for the vision of our district. You understand and influence educational and legislative efforts at the state and federal level, as well as working with multiple professional organizations to improve the education of all students across Tennessee and also here in Kingsport. You work tirelessly to ensure that each and every day children in Kingsport receive what they need to be successful, not just today, but by grasping that vision and looking toward the future to provide what is needed for high levels of long-term success as individuals in the district. We do have several ways that we wanted to acknowledge and thank you for your service and let you know how much we appreciate you. At your seat, there's a small gift there for you from the district and the Kingsport Chamber. We just want to thank you for that. This week, if you're on our social media, you'll also see that you're being highlighted and celebrated throughout the week. Each of you will be celebrated on a day. I think we look at you collectively as a group, but you'll also have your bios highlighted in our social media platforms and also on our website at WCSQ Radio and then also in the media. And also this year, we're going to continue our tradition that we have for several years, which is on your behalf, have books available for our school libraries that will be placed in the library, and the cover of those books are basically that it's being presented in appreciation of you and on behalf of you. We typically like to have students here to receive those books. Obviously, with COVID this year, we can't do that. But I did want to let you know that the books are going to be presented to the library and just briefly tell you what you're giving to schools on your behalf. So to our pre-K to the Palmer Center, we're presenting the book Alone Together, A Tale of Friendship and Hope by Julia Seal. It's very topical. It's not a normal sort of day. The sun is up, the birds are out, but everyone is indoors. Our world can be a bewildering place, especially during times of change. This book celebrates the power of community and helps children stay hopeful when they have to stay at home, with an uplifting message reminding us that even though we might feel like we're alone, we're really alone together. So Alone Together will go to our pre-K. Our elementary schools are going to receive the book Love by Newbery Medal-winning author Matt De La Pena and New York Times bestselling illustrator Lauren Long. This is a beautifully illustrated book that describes how love follows us around each and every day of our lives. Whether it's the sound of our parents' voices lulling us to sleep, the joyful laughter of an uncle's latest tall tale, or the warm embrace of a loved one, that's a way that love takes countless forms. So it really connects us. Also, the book's Love is being presented to our elementary schools. Our middle schools are receiving the book Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, 100 Immigrant Women Who Changed the World. This is the third volume in this New York Times bestselling series. It contains 100 biographies of women who became chefs, surgeons, politicians, musicians, extraordinary figures who can inspire girls everywhere to follow their dreams wherever they may lead. So this is going to our two middle schools. And to our high schools, The Edge of Anything by Laura Shalaway Carpenter. This book is set in the mountains in the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina. and tells the tale of two individuals, Lynn and Sage. Lynn is a lumber teen photographer haunted by a past that stagnated her work. And Sage is a high school volleyball star desperate to find her way. It's a novel that explores grief, mental health, and how the transformative power of friendship can find ourselves in goodness and live together when everything needs to be appropriate. So this is going to be good for high school. So we just want to thank you, and again, those will go to our schools on your behalf. I really appreciate you. Also, I will point out we have in our board notes and posted the proclamation from the governor designating this as School Board Appreciation Week, and that's viewable in your notes. Just again a second. So on behalf of the district, Dr. Morehouse, and all the teachers and students, we just want to thank you for what you do to help support our work as a district.
Thank you, Dr. True, for those kind words. I don't make it a habit of speaking with the board on something that we haven't taken a vote on. I believe it's safe to say that we are all very privileged to serve in Kingsport City Schools. As members of the board, it's an honor to serve with the faculty and staff of each of our schools and to help this community assure that our schools remain excellent both in the present and the future. It is indeed a high honor to sit around the table and have these discussions. So thank you very much for the recognition this evening. And I also apologize that my thing didn't go on mute, and so I'm afraid some of your things were not necessarily broadcast. All right, our next item for discussion is Mary Beth McLean and Dr. True with the communication report.
I'll ask Mary Beth to join me. We do like every year to really just take a moment and highlight the work of the communications department, the work that Mary Beth and Jeff Hall really drive on a day-to-day basis. It helps to engage our community, and we'd just like to give you an update on kind of where we are. We'd like to point out some of the work that has been done, and especially this year to highlight some of the work that will be done in the coming weeks and months as we've gone through this period of COVID. So just to kind of highlight our educational, really how we tie our work to our educational mission, really working to engage our families and our community in the work of the district. We feel it's important that we really highlight the stories of our district and help really our entire community to engage with our schools and our school system so that we have a high level of connection in what we're doing. We do work to align our department goals with the goals of the district. Again, our overall goal to engage families, goal 5 really is our district goal to engage families in the community. Really seeking to be able to make those connections in a way that helps all of our stakeholders better understand what it is going on and understand the value of our district. There are 3 individuals that really drive the communications work of the district. And I'll point out really the 2 most important, and that's Ms. McLean as our communications editor. If there's a piece designed at the district level or a social media post or the writings done there, Mary Beth is really the one that drives all of that work. We want to highlight some of that today. Jeff Hall, who is often unseen but is a key part of the team, running a kind of one-man show, running a radio station, WCSK 90.3 FM, as well as really embedding himself throughout the district to provide audio support and media technology work for your concert on the radio, like with Jeff as a reporter of it, or also helping really with some classroom work as well, local classroom work. As a side gig, he also helps run the DD website and helps us with web development. So that's really our team. Mary Beth is going to, I think, dive in and really talk to you a little bit of the work it is that's been going on.
So as you know, we have several publications that we produce annually. The 55-page report that we get every year. We also have the employee handbook, policy manual, procedures manual, and the data dashboard that we will be discussing at the end of this presentation. And then an ongoing thing that we do is, as you know, we send out meeting and work session notes after the board meetings, and then every month we send out the employee newsletter. And when it comes to district marketing, we focus both internally and externally Our biggest thing is story development, sending out news releases, media advisories, photo opportunities, focusing on our social media platforms, our websites, and then as Andy mentioned, our radio station, WCS, paying out in that. And then you can see there's other district marketing opportunities that we have, such as publications, promotional items, video production events, etc. Mentioning events, we have taken over a lot of events in the last probably 8 years. We've taken over the back to school convocation event, the Kingsport Hall of Fame induction ceremony, the luncheon, back to school expo, inside KCS, American Education Week, the events go on and on. And we also have not only annual events, but like pop-up events that come up for people's receptions. We do the invitation design, the contacts, the food, just the whole event facilitation. When it comes to district promotions, we are very big fans of our logo. So anytime we have an opportunity to display our logo, we will. Apparel, drink items, stationery, safety kits, you name it, we'll put our logo on it if we can. Some hashtags that we really like to promote is the One Tribe. That's been around for a few years. And this year, Dr. Morehouse, he has started KCS Hero. And that ties into his convocation presentation, and it also ties into the green KCS Hero t-shirt you received a few months ago. And as always, any organization they need to have R&D. We always try to do department visioning at least once a year. We just met probably a couple weeks ago to discuss our vision for this spring and then moving forward. We always try to look for best practices, innovative concepts, and we're very aware that social media is always evolving. So we want to try to stay abreast and never fall behind in that arena. And then also this spring, we would like to bring back the We Are KCS blog with our student interns doing a lot of that work. And that's a great segue because this is our second year that we have student interns. They are DB seniors in the Work-Based Learning Program. This spring, we have 3, so we're very excited. It's Addison Metcalf, Alex Long, and Alyssa Gray. And they will be working with me in all aspects of the communication department.
We've thought about ways that we can expand our reach and our efforts as a communication shop, really limited in some ways just with capacity, and also an opportunity to provide really a way for students to embed in the work and provide them an experience at the high school level, working with their RBAL and the folks at DB. This is something I want to just point out, Mary Beth has really helped spearhead and lead this work to develop the program and then also help facilitate it on a day-to-day basis. They're here with us an hour every day. We had one, as we have one goal this year, was to expand on the program to have 3 interns. Really, our thought is, we're obviously not of a high school age, and that is a key stakeholder group for us, and to be able to have that level of connection and that perspective was critical for us. And to throw a group of really smart, proactive, and individuals that have talent together in the room, with the proper guidance and to really see how they can follow. So we're excited to start that work this week, to be able to have them together and to be able to help drive our work together. So we're really excited about that program and grateful for the work that was done on that. Another key piece of our work is really crisis management and communications, helping lead that work, whether it's a snow day call or keeping staff updated or keeping our principals updated, things that are going on. That's a key part of our work, as well as supporting the work of the safety task force to be able to help communicate that at work effectively. So that's a key part of our focus area, as well as external community support and internal district support. Those are 2 areas that there are a lot of different ways that we go about really just helping further the mission, whether it's things that are coming out of the superintendent's office all the way down to the classroom level, looking for ways that we can support that work and highlight that work. One other thing I really want to highlight as we talk about our vision and work Not that it wasn't necessary, but I think as we step back and look on the last year, such a large part of our work has been information sharing, kind of news gathering and news reporting with our community, with our staff and our students. We needed to do that. Obviously, during this period, it was critical that we have a way to share accurate information and that we're providing that information to our community. One of the things we really want to focus on moving forward, and you said as focus item now, is really to go back to our roots, which was our storytelling. We can provide the information which is critical, but we really feel it's critical that we're telling the stories of our teachers, of our students, of our staff members, so our community, in the midst of everything that's going on, really has a deep level of understanding of the phenomenal work that's taking place in our schools. The things that our kids and our adults are doing to step forward and be successful this time. So we're really putting a primary effort this semester on that old school storytelling. Going back to the things we've done for such a long time, it was kind of, again, just we've been more information sharing with folks. So we're really excited about that and how we can just be storytellers.
So some of the ways that we tell the story of KCS is we utilize our district website. We post news, events, alerts. We also have 13 school level websites with school level website administrators, and then we also have one athletics website. Our biggest thing currently is social media. The district has a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn account. We also have a YouTube channel. As you know, we're live streaming right now. Our biggest thing is storytelling, story development. I do a lot of monitoring on all the platforms, and our biggest thing is we want a two-way dialogue. We want to make sure our fans know that they can communicate with us. I receive a lot of private messages on on Facebook and Instagram primarily, and I try to respond to those accordingly or forward them to the people that are appropriate. When it comes to social media, there's a lot of graphics and photo design, and then also we do a lot of cross promotion with our school level and athletic social media accounts. So here are just some quick demographics I took from our social media platforms this afternoon. With Facebook, we have a little over 13,500. Twitter followers about 6,200, and then Instagram followers a little over 4,000. And the main demographics for Facebook is 80% female, and the age bracket is between 35 and 44. So what that tells me is that we're reaching our female employee base and our mothers in the community. So we try to target those messages for that audience. Twitter has actually removed the audience insights as of this month. So this is the insights from last year this time, but it follows suit with Facebook with the majority of the audience being female. And the same goes with Instagram. Again, female audience overwhelmingly in numbers, and the age brackets between 35 to 44. The one good thing about Instagram insights is that it shows the best time to post, and that's around 6 p.m. So we post throughout the day to hit different audiences, but when there's like a really important piece of information we like to do, we like to send between 6 and 7:30. And then these are just demographics of our employees and our students. As you can see, a little over 1,200 employees, a little over 7,600 students. And our families per household, which means we purchase duplicate siblings, we have almost 4,900. And then another piece we'd like just to focus on, Andy's already talked about it a little bit, is our radio station. We truly have the diamond in the rough with WCXK 90.3 FM. Not only does Jeff record board meetings and concerts, but he also has educational programming and music throughout the day. He also has a Dobbins Minute Radio Club. So students who are interested in radio broadcasting or being a DJ, they can work with Jeff and they have on-air time. And we also do live sports programming for the football games and as well as basketball games.
It's a pretty significant investments in WCSK in the last couple of years from the hardware standpoint. We purchased and have installed a new transmitter this past year to really boost our signal strength. And then in addition to what we've talked about with our vision for our department, I think Jeff has some really defined ways that he wants to be able to work with classrooms, to work with students, and to share that information out on WCSK to work towards building listenership in addition to what we already have. So we feel like we had some back-end work that we wanted to do to kind of beef up the technology with WCSK. We've done that over the last year, and we're really excited to be able to kind of go with this new avenue, this new old avenue of storytelling with CSK.
And then another way we tell the story of KCS is through video production. One of the most popular videos is the Superintendent Storytime videos. If you haven't seen them, that's where Dr. Morehouse reads a book on camera, and we post it during spring break, summer break, fall break, etc. And that's an opportunity for students to watch and listen to a story being read to them if maybe they don't have that opportunity at home. Another thing we do is Falcon Student Football Preview. We do that every fall. Social media live streams. And a lot of this we do cross-promotion across all platforms.
Some other things that come out of the communication department, some ongoing projects that you probably already know about, but just to highlight them. Inside KCS, we're in our 7th year of that. This year's a little bit different. We've not been able to get in schools with our cohort, but that's a half-day program that happens over 6 Fridays over the course of the school year, where we really dive deep into the work of the district and help the participants really just kind of go behind the scenes and see all that goes into a school system, whether it's operations or the educational side, the administrative side. We really kind of, we ride a bus, we go in the cafeteria, we really look at all those fundamental pieces. And that's been a really exciting project that we've done for the last 7 years. Also in our 7th year is the City Schools Hall of Fame. We've talked about that a lot. We're actually just now getting ready to start taking nominations for this next class. So we're excited that we're moving forward with that project. That's been one of our more enjoyable projects, and I think as a district more important projects, that we continue to celebrate the legacy of these schools. Really, in looking at our plans again, so much of what we have done has been about crisis communication, and we really hope you'll look forward to the things that are coming in the next semester as we go back to, like I said, we go back to our roots of storytelling. We draw in the work of our interns to do it in creative ways and in ways that as more experienced adults that we may not see through the eyes of a child. So we're excited to be able to really highlight that work and highlight what's going on in our schools, which really is the key of what we do. Is how do we highlight the work in our schools? How do we tell our story in an innovative way? But just a little snapshot of the work that we're doing as a communications department. We'd be glad to talk more, answer any questions you may have about the work that comes out of our City Schools communications.
Thank you for your presentation. Any board members have questions or comments for Dr. Klein?
What kind of things have you had interns work on?
Last semester, we focused on social media content creation. Not last semester, spring 2020. We focused on social media content creation. I started having them work on video production, getting familiar with different video aspects of Mevo, different software programs. And then we got cut short because of COVID, unfortunately. So Kevin and Lindsay didn't get to spend their full time with us, but the time that they did spend, I considered it very valuable, especially for me, just learning from them. So far this semester, with Addison, Alex, and Alyssa, we have really just dived into the background in industry public relations, gone over components of news releases. We're starting with social media content creation, and we actually have a Google Meet with the principal tomorrow to discuss a potential video project that she's interested in.
One of the things we really wanted to do in the conversation, they went through a formal interview process. We had multiple candidates that interviewed with us, really wanting to highlight the fact that we are looking for perspectives that we don't have. And we want to have interns that are trustworthy and that can build content and can tell those stories in a way that we may not be able to. They're talking about TikTok and those sorts of things that 49-year-old doesn't do TikTok, but you've got kids that can. And when you've got students that are excited and willing to learn and to work, they understand kind of the parameters of where their lanes are and the expectations of professionalism, and we're really excited about what this group is going to be able to do.
Great.
Next semester, we hire students that have the first name beginning with B.
We're going sequentially by letter. Yeah, it is interesting the way that all worked out. Yeah.
These guys need to figure that out.
We've had that conversation, yes.
What are the biggest challenges you see with using such a, and I'm glad we're doing it, but such a public platform such as Facebook or, Instagram, where everybody is watching everybody's comments? What do you find to be the biggest challenge or issue that we have there?
Yeah, and over the last couple of months, our audience has kind of changed gears, not as much as love and support and congratulatory comments. It has unfortunately gone a little negative at times. So my biggest thing when monitoring comments and responding to messages is to try to answer their questions first and foremost. But then sometimes I choose not to continue the conversation. I think that's important to recognize when you have such negativity. There's a love-hate relationship with social media, as everybody knows, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We are turning a corner, and our commenters and messages are becoming more and more positive, which is fantastic, because that gives me the feeling that we're moving back to what we used to be. And as Andy indicated, we're trying to go back to our roots this semester and really start diving back into focusing on our students and promoting what our teachers work and all the awesome things that our employees and students are doing.
I think the one thing with social media that we have tried to do over time is to let it be unregulated, but let it be as unregulated as possible. That's what we really try to do is to provide platforms for us to hear. Because regardless of whether we may think it's a positive or a negative, if the information is out there or the sentiment is out there, I think it's helpful that we understand it and we know it. So I think it's provided in all ways. It's provided a way for us to get feedback, again, both positive and sometimes not as positive. But if those thoughts are out in the community, I think it's important for us, again, two-way communication. We need to understand those things. And it's a way for folks to engage with the district, for us to be able to know better about what's going on in our community.
And at the end of the day, I try to watch a lot of Facebook stuff as well, but when you get discouraged, because some days it's still only 20 people complaining out of 8,700 people in our system. So, even though it seems hurtful at that time, and you guys do a great job in making sure it's all out there, people do have a platform to air their frustrations and concerns, and you guys do handle it very well, but just keep in mind, those complainers are a small drop in the bucket considering all the people that we have in our system.
I think the thing when you look at those demographics too is where people are. And so for us to be in that space is important. And for us to be able to have a platform there that folks can get information and share feedback, there can be an exchange there. If we're going to be engaging to our community, it's important for us to engage where people are.
Thank you guys for doing all of that.
So the feedback sometimes, does that ever get leveled up? Like if it's something of significance?
As far as through the organization?
So on Facebook,
Yep.
when you take some of that feedback in, does it ever get sent back up like to
Yes.
superintendent level?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Mary Beth does a good job monitoring those sorts of things. I say monitoring, but she's kind of the one on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis. It's really keeping an eye on that. And when there are issues or concerns, she will go directly to administrators. She'll come to me. We'll disseminate things in the room. But absolutely, yeah, that information is shared throughout the organization as she will. Absolutely.
No, I appreciate that. That's good because even though it may only be a small percentage of people, I tend to think sometimes for every one parent that you have that takes the time to send an email or send a comment within reason, right? Not just somebody because they got quick thumbs.
Right. Well, it has meaning to the sender, and so I think that we need to value that, by understanding that and dealing with that information is a way that we can productively, I think one of the things that we have tried as a department, but also as an organization, we talk about all this that we're doing from communication, but we can always get better. There's always ways that we can improve, and so if there are ways that we can take that information and get better, whether how we communicate or as an organization, that's information we want to have.
No, I appreciate you doing that. I know that's not easy to do, especially because you get some crazy comments out there. But I think it's because that's where people live, right? I mean, this is the whole purposes of being on Facebook and Twitter, is because that is where everyone lives right now, especially as connected as we are right now on YouTube. And so that is where information comes back to the board and to superintendent, to the school system, is through this means, right? So the very purpose of us advertising in that space.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just have a question. So, Facebook is where people like us live. So what's getting antiquated and what do you anticipate moving into that maybe people like us might not be aware of?
Mary Beth, maybe, I will ask her to speak more to that, but that is precisely why we want to develop this internship program. We can, as adults, look at the emerging technologies, and those are things that we do as a department, but also to get that other perspective. And like I say, when the kids came to us in that first meeting and said, we really think we need to do something on TikTok. Okay. That is foreign to me. I won't speak for Rebecca on that, but those kinds of viewpoints, I think, are important for us to have, so that we're always looking next. You're right. I think, the Facebook and the Twitter, I don't know where they are on the trajectory, but there are other things that are going to emerge, and that's something we always want to keep our eye on.
Yeah, and social media is always evolving. Like when I discuss the demographics, when we moved to Instagram, we did that because we wanted to reach a younger population. We wanted to reach our students. But when you look at the analytics of Instagram, when you look at the analytics, we're reaching the same core audience as we do on Facebook. It's the female who is 35 to 44 years old. So one, the challenge is, how do we reach our students appropriately, and what content do we push to them that we're not pushing to our other audience? And when our intern asked in his interview, when Alex mentioned TikTok, it was like kind of a light bulb, where I was like, oh my God, that's awesome, because I'm even growing bored of Instagram. Like Facebook, I'm hardly ever on. I'm growing bored of Instagram, and I find myself on TikTok a lot, after hours, of course. And so it's just easier to see a quick 30-second, 60-second video than having to recapture on an image. So I think it's a really cool idea, and we're very serious about looking into that and seeing the opportunity that has.
Thank you, guys.
No, I'm saying that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Job well done.
Oh, I did want to point out, sorry, I was supposed to mention the dashboard. This is something that you have a copy of, and Dr. Morris will speak more of it. This is also something that came out of the communications department. We started doing this last year, which is kind of a one-stop for the overall look at the data in the district. Key measures that we feel like, beyond just regular test scores, that are important to tell the story of our district. Just wanted to point that out. You have that. Dr. Morris will talk more about it. It will be the centerfold of our annual report, which is coming very soon. But just that is one other piece from a communication standpoint.
Thank you. So our next item on our agenda is a GPA Trends Report. Dr. Hampton, Dr. Finley. This is a follow-through from our business meeting in which we had preliminary discussion about the possibility of a policy regarding suspension and alteration of grade in some form or fashion. It was determined that we needed to collect some data to have further discussion on that. So first of all, Dr. Hampton, Dr. Finley, I want to thank you for taking the time and the energy to do this. I know it was above and beyond call of duty. We're responding, I hope you understand, we're responding to some citizen concerns about rates, and we wanted to get a handle. you know, the publicity on this is nationwide, as you well know. And so we wanted to see where we were stacking up locally and what, if anything, that we needed to do to address it. So once again, and this is just me personally coming at you, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to put this together for us. And the floor is yours, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And would like to take the opportunity to thank Mickey Clark. I'd like to take the opportunity also to thank Mickey Clark, Michael Hubbard, and Samantha Stidham. Those are district and development level employees who really did much of the legwork in pulling this information together. And so, Dr. Stidham and I were involved in the process, but they really did a lot of number sorting and extrapolating and to help us get to this point of sharing this information.
If they're not watching this, please pass my personal thanks on.
They have been thanked many times in the last 2 weeks. So as this was presented to me, it was an opportunity to gather and share information that might show the learning impact that COVID-related adjustments have had on the learning environment or student learning at the high school. And so the metrics we've chosen to look at, or we've decided would be good metrics for determining progress pre-COVID, post-COVID, were average cumulative grade point averages, average cohort grade point averages, and grade distributions, looking at pre-COVID data for current students and that same data since the pandemic hit in March. And so that's what some of the slides that we'll share deal with. Of course, the agenda is just the things we're going to be talking about. Anytime you're looking at student data, we potentially have some disclaimers in the data. I wouldn't attest that we're going to deal with any of those or talk about any of those tonight. There are differences in cohorts. You can generalize one class to another. You can generalize course-taking patterns one to another or year to year for grade levels. But sometimes there are outliers with the academic abilities of classes, the size of classes, the transiency rate of classes, behavior demonstrated within classes. So there could be some nuances in any one of our classes that keep it from an apples to apples comparison. But generally speaking, I think this information is going to be accurate and reflective of what the experience of Dobbins Minute has been leading up to this point. I'll also point out that, I don't know if this is a disclaimer as much, but it's certainly an asterisk. We, during this past semester, have had 125 students who have tested positive for the virus. And so they've obviously missed additional days beyond what they would have normally missed. We've had over 200 students who've been quarantined, some of whom have been quarantined a second and third time. And so those are additional days missed. And there's no way to discount the impact that would have on their performance, as well as the hybrid and virtual schedule. Whether we've been in, there was a period of time where we were in school full time. Much of this last semester, we were operating on an every other day or twice a week schedule for students. And again, there's certainly an impact on students when they're not in classes with educators each day. And then lastly, we'll point out, we had, I think it was 330, the number is escaping, 330 to 350 of our high school students who elected to learn at home in the fall full time. They were our remote choice learners. Their information is not included in this presentation simply because there was no comparison point to go back to. We didn't compare RCA performance to anything there's nothing that's mirrored. And additionally, that has not been, it was not a Kingsport City School curriculum. It was a third-party curriculum that we had teachers facilitate. We have since shifted away from that, but in the fall, we just couldn't find a place where the comparison makes sense. So those are just some disclaimers to think about as we talk about the data when we get to the data. This slide of interventions, those are just some frequently implemented interventions on the part of our staff, primarily teachers and counselors, some principals. These are the ones that teachers indicated were most frequent in their toolboxes. Everything from what we've always experienced with parental contact to spreading over into the virtual parent conferences, to modifying curriculum, to modifying assessments. A wide variety of adjustments were made during the school year, during the semester, to mitigate what might have been a COVID effect. And these are just an example of some of those. I won't go through all of them, though I will stop if you have any questions about any of those specific strategies or interventions.
My preference is that you go through your, we'll go back with the questions and discussions.
That's perfectly fine. The next two slides are just anecdotes. When I was collecting information from teachers, it was, these interventions were where we were focusing on, who was implementing what and to what degree. But then I gave them an open-ended opportunity to share what other interventions or other strategies that they might have put in place to reach out to their students and families. And so I had 60 responses to that question. I certainly didn't share 60 with you, but I chose some of the diverse responses just to kind of give you a picture of the type of social, emotional, academic, financial needs that faculty were attempting to support during this most disruptive semester. So I thought that would give a good perspective on the types of efforts that were going into helping students be the best learners they could be, and hopefully help them to be as adjusted as they possibly could be during a time where adjustment was very hard in the best days. So those are just two slides of those anecdotes. And then we get to the slides. The charts that show the data that we were able to calculate or gather for you. So in these first sets of charts, what we're looking at is the average cumulative grade point average for all students in a particular grade level through the fall of 2020. So we're comparing grade to grade. So we're looking at ninth graders in the 2019 versus ninth graders in 2020, 10th graders in 2019, 10th graders in 2020. Just to see, now these aren't the same kids, these are two different classes for each of those grade levels for weighted and unweighted GPA. Just to see how those students ended up at the end of this semester compared to the class that was there before them, knowing that the class there before them had not experienced any COVID-related anything. So for our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, you can see in both weighted and unweighted grade point averages, the average increased. The students' average grade point averages went up. The exception was at the ninth grade level. And in both cases, weighted and unweighted grade point average, the ninth grade average grade point averages dropped. The weighted dropped by 1/1300ths of a point, the unweighted dropped by 1900ths of a point. So in both of those cases, we saw a decline. The next set of charts is looking at cohorts. So how are the same students faring compared to where they were faring a year ago? So we are looking at the same students. And so we broke it up by the class of 21, 22, and 23. So that's our current seniors, juniors, and sophomores. And you will see for both weighted and unweighted grade point average, there was an increase. Their grade point averages went up in all three cases, or in all three classes for both weighted and unweighted grade point average. Not significant increases, but they did increase. And the last set of data you will see there are grade distributions. And this is looking at just classroom grades from the fall of 2019 and classroom grades for the fall of 2020. And what the percentage assigned to each letter grade that we have in our grading scale. So A, B, C, D, and F. And what you would find is that, for example, for the A's, for both years, we had 48% of our overall grades reported as A's. And so for the letter grade A and for the letter grade D, we really didn't see any changes. 48% A, 6%, roughly 6% D. For our Bs and Cs, we saw a decline in the percent of students, or the percent of grades that were reported as Bs and Cs from 2019 to 2020. And we saw an increase in the percent of our grades that were reported as Fs from 2019 to 2020. I think the percent in 2019 was 5.7%, and the percent in 2020, fall 2020, was 10.2%. I think it went up 4.5%. There's a difference of 4.5% from the fall 19 to the fall of 20. So,
And that probably ties back to your ninth graders.
yeah, there is, of those Fs earned, 30% were earned at by the ninth grade class. And I think that's where you see a heavy influence on that. I'm not sure how to get back to our presentation. If anybody wants to go back. The 30% of the Fs, the class of the Fs, came at the ninth grade level. And there were some significant clusters at that level. For example, we had 15 students in the ninth grade class who didn't earn any credits in the fall. 15. So that's more than the total of 10th, 11th, and 12th combined. So when you have that influence on the grade point average, I think that's what you can attribute to the decline in the average GP grade point average. You know, the 284 Fs at the ninth grade for the ninth grade class, 69 of those were earned by those 15 students. So 24% of those Fs came from 15 students in the ninth grade class. And so there's certainly some transition challenges that came with migrating from ending an eighth grade year under this COVID situation, transitioning to the high school without the benefit of tours or orientations. We created those experiences, but they were virtual and a far cry from what the in-person experience would have been for students. And so clearly for us, we can see that that transition to ninth grade was a challenge for many students. That's the extent of the presentation. We need to go back to previous slides or answer any questions related to the data. We're happy to do so.
Mr. Dean?
Yeah, that data right there. I was a little bit surprised. I hadn't looked at anything like this in a long time. That almost 50% of grades are A's, and I would wager based on personal experience as a teacher and a parent that those kids who made all those A's in person as well, right?
In many cases, I would say, I didn't look at that data, but in most cases, I would say.
But this leads to my question about the other ones that we're most concerned about. And it sounds like it's kind of, that group is growing on the other side of the bell curve, right? It's interesting and disturbing. I know it's disturbing to you all. Not that I have really a question about it. I just wanted to make sure it sounds like I was seeing it and interpreting it correctly, right?
We have some pretty comprehensive intervention planning and programming that takes place at the high school, and have had that in place for several years. And the data indicates that it will need to be more robust in those efforts, especially in our post-COVID endeavors to support these students who have struggled. Now, I'll back up and say the fall of 2019, for each grade level, we also had students who didn't earn credits. So that's not necessarily an anomaly. The number, the 15, is very different from what we had in the fall of 2019.
I would just add, Mr. Dean, I think that one of the things that's glaring to us is the obvious need to increase our planned efforts. So for example, we're now getting ESSER funds that will make available to us some things we wouldn't have had available before, in terms of staff and resources, et cetera. So, studying this is coming at a really good time, frankly. to be able to say. So in addition to the things that have been happening, from teacher level to district level to principal level, is what would we plan for next? And of course, you've been hearing legislatively about other actions that are taken in the state. But it is coming up with time, so look at that.
Mr. Hodge, do you have questions, comments? No. Ms. Byers?
I do. I'm now like really worried about these 15 kids. What are we doing to make sure that they want to continue coming back? I know it's the law for them to come back, but that doesn't mean that they're going to. So I know, we're really good about reaching out, but, if I started out in a high school under these circumstances, where I finished 8th grade, where, probably finished with A's because, your grade couldn't go down, and we finished after the first week of the 9 weeks, but these 15 kids are breaking my heart. Probably lack of some support at home, but what are we doing to make sure that these kids feel like they can reach the finish line? Yes, they're not going to finish top 10 in their class, but they just need to cross that line, and they've got 3 years to do so. So what are we doing?
The students who aren't transfers into our district, because some of them are transfers, the ones who came from our middle school to the high school, were not a surprise that there were academic struggles. The communication and planning from middle school to high school, that still took place. The registration process still took place. The TBOS data exploration still took place. So these students were on the radars. All but 2 were enrolled in the intervention class on the front end so that they would have support that was running parallel to their academic courses. But when we started this semester not at school, the intervention class is really hard to provide support remotely because it really serves to build skills that weren't earned in previous grades. And so, and those students didn't engage very well either for a variety of reasons. And so we started working with our communication plan back in August with those students. When they didn't Zoom in the first time, we had a team of people who were reaching out and calling parents and calling students, attempting to communicate with them. So now they're back on campus. Well, we're back in the schedule we're in now, and we're in the new semester classes. They have the attention and the focus of an academic intervention team, which includes graduation coach, an interventionist, their school counselor, assistant principal, and myself. And we work on a monthly, we review their data on a monthly basis, and then out of that intervention meeting, we go out and take different action steps. So if the students still aren't attending, we work with our truancy department to try to make sure that we're getting them back into school. If they're in school but they're not working, then we work with their teachers to support an academic plan so that they can make progress towards our academic goals. So that's really been in place since the get-go, because those kids did not catch us by surprise. That's just part of vertical and longitudinal planning. In fact, I would say most of those more startling cases didn't catch us by surprise. There were other situations where you can see the percentage of B's and C's drop. I think the transition to this type of learning was very difficult for many students, and it's reflected in those numbers. It's been very hard for students. No one could deny that this has been an incredibly challenging experience for students, parents, and educators alike.
Well, it sounds like we're going above and beyond probably what any normal school system would do to try to bring these, but I feel better that, we weren't a total failure to these 15 students, that some of it was their own, actions that we had planned in place. So thank you for, trying to, bring these children and let them have a bright future as we hopefully cross that finish line in a couple of years.
Mr. Golden? Thank you. I genuinely appreciate this. The anecdotes here, I can say that I can speak to directly, having kids at all of these different levels. I've seen many of these firsthand, and I greatly appreciate it. If I can ask you, what does this data tell you?
Well, as I mentioned, it tells me that the transition was very difficult for new students, that learning how to navigate being a high school student proved to be difficult for many of our ninth graders. It also tells me that We have many, many resilient students who fought through the challenges of a global pandemic in an educational setting that no one alive has ever experienced. And they hit home runs each and every day. That they put forth an effort at school, they put forth an effort at home, and they invested in themselves and they invested in learning. It also tells me that teachers in many cases not only mitigated the COVID effect, but maybe at times overcompensated for the COVID effect. When this data was first asked, when I was approached to put it together, I was pretty confident in my mind that those grade point averages would have been a decline. I did not think that they would have been increased. I don't think we would have had increases. And I don't think most people would have thought. That's not me being pessimistic.
No. So at that point though, how many kids are in RCL?
330. So rough, I think it was 330 in the fall.
Yeah, so
There are fewer now.
okay, so we don't have that data. I'm saying we weren't presented RCL data.
Correct.
There's 330 kids we're not talking about right now.
Correct.
Those are probably the most at-risk kids because we don't have any data on them.
Well, many of them are, and I do have their cohort data. So for the juniors and seniors, their grade point average has increased negligibly, like the 11th graders increased 1,000th of a point. So they would have broke even if you put the RCO kids into it. The sophomores, there was a decrease in the sophomore grade point average if you put the RCO kids back into the cohort group. The other way is because there were no honors classes in the RCO endeavor. So,
This brings me to my point. So if 9th grade dropped by 6%, 10th grade, 11th and 12th went up by 2, 2, and 1 respectively, according to this data. 9th grade didn't drop by 6%, it dropped by 8%. Because if the other grades went up by 2, 2, and 1, there should be an increase in 9th grade. This is a very alarming number to me. This is an extremely alarming number because how many years is it going to take us to overcome this for 9th graders? And at what level do the kids check out? When do they finally say, you know what, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I've been an A and B student, and through no fault of the teachers, I am not in any way, shape, or form blaming. This is above and beyond what's the anecdotes that are here. But let me give you a picture tomorrow. And I invite anyone to my house. We have 5 children. We have to homeschool tomorrow. My wife and I have to try to get our own jobs done and teach our kids and still have a normal life tomorrow. So as the emails come in, as the assignments come in, we have to keep a paper for each one of our kids. We have to say, well, this is off. Let me email the teacher. I can't get this link to work. Let me email the teacher. Then I have to go to another kid. Then I have to go to another kid. My wife has to do the same thing. And we've been doing this continuously for the entire year. This isn't changing. And the reason, there's only so much people can do, teachers, administration, but especially parents and teachers and students, before we just are done. This isn't going to change. The 9th graders are not going to get better. I don't, because we have no data to compare it to for last year, once we get to the final 2 semesters. We froze the grades because of the state, so we have no way of knowing. So this number is about to get exponentially worse. And now we have the boldest of students that are going to be leading through, and they are truly the COVID kids. Because this isn't even talking about K through 8. How many kids now? I never got a C until I was in 5th grade. And then suddenly I thought, well, I guess I'm a C student. How many kids now have gotten Fs and they think I'm now an F student? They're not. They are not an F student. They're going to think it forever. We have to mitigate this. We have to stop this. This is. Excuse me.
Do we know what the 9th grade would be if we subtracted out those 15 students?
I did not calculate that number.
Our kids need to be in school 5 days a week. This is ridiculous.
So
We are burning our parents and burning our kids.
But why, these guys sitting right here.
I'm not blaming them, I'm not blaming them at all. You absolutely understand, this is not directed at you, I'm not blaming.
We want them to come to school 5 days a week.
I know you do, I know you do. All teachers, good teachers, want to see those kids. This is why you went into this, because you love those kids. This is why you moved to Kingsport, to put our kids in this system. This is why we hired the schools, so that they go to school. This is taking a toll that we don't know how long it's going to be. There was suicide in Johnson City of a student. There was 18 suicides in Las Vegas. I guarantee you, if you took a poll of all the pediatricians in the area and asked them how much antidepressant prescriptions are up, they would say it's an exponential number. There is 20% increase in sales of alcohol. The cases of the abuse that are typically caught at the school are not getting reported because they can't be there. I commend you for all of the work that you have done. I could not thank the teachers enough for the ones that bend over backwards to do this and to blunt this. And I know their hearts break to miss their kids, to not be able to see them. I know that. I know it breaks your heart to see this data. And just like Dr. Hendon, like you said, I expected fully for this data to be poor. And I think if we look at K through 8, we would see striking numbers. I asked if we could break this down between boys and girls, because I think there may be also another hidden story here. A kid who's marginally ADD, who hasn't been diagnosed, doesn't quite hit the criteria, the 26 symptoms across 6 months, maybe he's got 24 symptoms. And now he's sitting at home and he cannot stay focused. He can't do it. My wife and I can do this. It's incredibly difficult. We can do this. There are so many parents that have reached out to me. I sent 6 pages of feedback to this board. I hope everyone read that feedback and take that seriously. I would encourage anyone listening on YouTube to email your board. Let your board know exactly what you're going through, exactly what the grades are like, exactly what your kids are going through. Share that. We got 200 emails when we tried to open schools up at the beginning of this year. 200 emails. Most emails I've ever gotten in 6 years in this board. The parents stopped. Because why? What's the point? They have to get this done. They don't have time. They don't have time to email a teacher. They don't have time to keep doing this. Because this is what they're going through every single day. And then they're consoling their kids because they're crying. I appreciate everything you're doing. I genuinely appreciate it. Please extend my sincerest gratitude to every single one of your teachers, every single one of your employees, everyone that works with and underneath you. I sincerely thank them. We have to get kids back in school.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you. Dean?
I appreciate what you're doing too. And it's interesting, my perspective on it is much different than Mr. Gold's, because kids are grown and they're having kids of their own now. This owns this to be received the same way I intended. But one of my concerns in the 50,000 foot view is I would get a little bit concerned that as we try to address this with our evaluation of the performance, that we don't ease towards mediocrity in our expectation of kids too. I mean, that's something you just can't not keep your finger on the pulse of. But most, I think, what he was talking about, and I agree with a whole lot of that. It's not, it needs to be understood. This is a question for all of us and comments for all of us. And I encourage you to understand that. And I know it's hard to not feel personal ownership of that when you got the only high school in the system, but it's much bigger than that.
And I'll speak to that because since last March, we've been having this conversation. There is a tug of war between grace and accountability.
Right.
Because whether you pay taxes, you pay tuition, you're paid for a product in our school system, and that's learning, and it's love, it's compassion, it's soft skills, and it's productivity, and it's everything that allows our students to be successful when they leave. And that is where the pool, I think, with teachers has been hardest is when you register for these 8 courses, that you were placing an order, that whether, again, one way or the other, somebody in your household paid for that order. And how do I give you that product in a meaningful way under very dysfunctional circumstances, such that you're leaving having been improved by what it is that you asked us for. And so that has been, honestly, a daily challenge and a nightly prayer that we do that well, and that our teachers maintain a sense of positivity and mental health, and that our students leave us better each day than they walk through the doors when they arrive.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for your time.
Dr. Anthony, thank you for everything. Thank you. Again, echo this statement today. Thank you to our teachers for incredible work.
Dr. Morehouse.
Yes. So, before I get started, I have something that I want to give to Ms. Byers. We received from the U.S. Census Bureau a thank you for your continued promotion. And there was no way that was staying in my office, that was going to go to you. So thank you for your continued efforts from the U.S. Census Bureau. On behalf of the
We can't get rid of the census, can we?
There you go. So
We fully expect that to be framed in your.
So wanted to give that to you. So as we go through and try to give you some mid-year reports, the first thing I want to pull up is the strategic plan dashboard that Dr. True had mentioned. And while this is our second rendition, this was an effort that we started putting together last year. And while it's small, hopefully by being it on your computer, you can zoom in on some of those metrics that are there. But looking at the dashboard, based on last year's information, again, as you have this, you can see across the top some of the benchmark that we had. School year, we weren't able to get the DRA for 3rd grade. For our 6th grade benchmarks, while I can't see the numbers either. The dark green, we exceeded the year before. So we exceeded our benchmark from the previous year. Proficiency rates, while there wasn't state testing, these were overall percentages, and we were using our benchmark data to be able to report that. And so going into testing last year, based on our benchmark data, we were feeling really good about where we were leading into testing last year. And then at the end of last year, the number of students in the senior class for 2020, there were 539 graduates. Diploma plus, meaning that they had completed at least one post-secondary opportunity. Knowing that that's AP, dual enrollment, or industry certification. And so to have 75% of the class meet that, and that's an improvement over the 2019 class. The portrait of a graduate section right there, those are the competencies that we are looking to develop. We don't have metrics to be able to report to you because we weren't able to finish some of those. You also have the state testing box there. And I won't go over every one of these, but something else that I wanted to be able to tie back to in that Diploma Plus is if you look under the college and career readiness, there's 2 things that I'd like to be able to point out, is that our ACT score rose last year. That ACT score places Dobbins Bennett in the top, moved from 10th to 8th in the state. And so Dobbins Bennett ACT score is number 8 in the state, so congratulations to Dobbins Bennett. Also, the increase, as I told you, 75% of the class had a Diploma Plus. There were 687 industry certifications earned last year by the class. Some of the other major accomplishments you can see there in arts and athletics, and then just a typical day in Kingsport City Schools. We had 361 student visits on an average day to school nurses, 2,600 breakfasts served, 4,200 lunches served. On a typical day, we have 2,500 miles of road driven by our bus drivers, delivering nearly 2,000 students. And then this was a metric we were able to add this year, individual visits to school counselors. On an average day, you have 110. And so we were able to increase our counselors to schools, and so that was a metric that we started collecting. So that was our dashboard. The next thing that I wanted to share with you is some of the other final metrics that you can, let me pull this up on my computer as well. It's the 1920 strategic plan metrics. Going into last year, you can see that some of those are gray because they just weren't able to happen due to no testing and to COVID. And some of those that are red, while we didn't meet the goal, they were still improvements. The ready graduate percentage was at 60%. We made that to 59.9% on ready graduate. And so we just missed it by 0.1% from that standpoint. Another one that I'd like to draw attention to is while we had a goal of meeting or exceeding 80% of AP students scoring 3 or higher on AP exam. While we had that we were 73.8. We increased the number of tests and students taking tests again. And so as those numbers continue to increase in the number of students that are participating in AP, you probably are going to see a stabilization in the number of scores that are going up or meeting the 3. Because we want to push students to take those challenging courses. I'm not going to go through every one of those, but this is feedback to you on what we started here last year and have finally been able to get all the data in and to report that back to you. Not lastly, but the next one will be the 2021 strategic plan. And you can see, and I encourage you to hold on to those, that you can see what it is that we're working towards this school year in our goals. And so this will be what I'll be reporting back to you next year. Okay, so these are our goals for this year, and so that you can see that. Some of the highlights of the first semester, under these board goals, for excellence in programs, which is our goal 1 that you see there. Some of the things that have taken place to help navigate this year at the midpoint is, we had to develop a virtual school right there 2 weeks before school started. And so it was the development of RCL in a 2-week time frame was one of those things that we had to develop on the fly. We We also, last year, made a purchase of our literacy investment. We took on a new literacy program, and so our teachers in our elementary schools are fully implementing that literacy program. HMH is the vendor or the publisher. And so we got all of our teachers trained and they're implementing that. And all the feedback, just FYI, all the feedback on that is that teachers are really loving it. They really like HMH. The things are together and they have a strategy for how they're addressing literacy. We also, based off of feedback that we had gotten in the spring, we had made an investment into ClassLink, which is a single sign-on. And so trying to have all those into a certain area, those were things that we tried to do to assist and make things easier in this first semester. We also made an investment into a data management program to look at our benchmark assessments to be able to track student progress as we are towards the goal. We know where they finished in March. While there wasn't state testing, we do have their benchmark assessment. And so using that same benchmark assessment and tracking their progress towards our goals, those are things that we've been doing here this semester. And again, I won't go over all of these. You have these in your packet, but a lot of professional development for our teachers in trying to get them trained in their in the tools that we want them to use. Everybody's got a toolbox. We want to make sure everybody knows how to use a hammer. Everybody knows how to use the skill saw. They use other things along the way, but we wanted to make sure. So we have a lot of PD in Canvas. Because it used to be that we would say, well, you can do Google Classroom, you can do Canvas, you can do a lot of other things. We wanted everybody to use Canvas so that everybody had that skill set. Doing a lot with online support. We also gave a lot of professional development to a lot of our leaders on how to lead in uncertain times. We provided leadership and support and professional development to our principals. In-service day activities that took place. We're up, again, how do you make effective videos that sit there that people can relate back to and help support during the virtual settings. And then in our facilities area for goal 3, one of the things that we always kind of keep track of is in the first semester, we have cafeteria inspections. Out of that, school health scores, out of that we had 12 100s and 199. And so really proud of our cafeteria staff and their preparation of food and delivering that to our families. We had Wi-Fi network expansion to making all of our parking lots hot, and just cleaning protocols. As we went through first semester, the work that our custodians did to make sure that schools were disinfected and clean. One of the byproducts of that is while we've been able to keep everybody healthy, it's not just in COVID that we've been able to see a decrease in. We've also been able to see flu cases are really minimal right now. Illness visits to the school nurses have really gone down because kids in general have been healthier in this environment. And then as we talk about resource allocation, we've been working closely with schools and our ESSER dollars, making sure that we are utilizing our dollars to get the most bang out of the buck for that. And then under 5, our data dashboard is something that we've been constantly evolving and creating feedback to our families for them to know. We went from just positive cases that we could report inside our district. We then took that to report it by school. we're now taking that to not just positive cases, but talking about quarantines that are taking place at each school as well. So again, as we get data and we have confidence in it, there was a period of time where the reason we didn't provide that feedback at the school level is because contact tracing was early on being done by the health department. Once we took over contact tracing, we could know better what was the accurate number and report that to our families. And so we've been really working hard to try to, again, communicate with our families. We give updates every week about operational status. And this week, while that takes place on Wednesdays, we're going to be pushing that communication to Friday, as we are working with our health department, with our leadership team. That thankfully our numbers are trending in a really positive direction that gives us the opportunity to really dig into trying to find ways to add instructional days, face-to-face instructional days back to the calendar for our kids to get in front of teachers. And so hope to have something positive to report back to our families this week, at the end of this week, as we work on those plans. But want to say thank you to our community. It's been very evident, not just from a school system standpoint, but from a healthcare standpoint, that everybody really worked hard and sacrificed over Christmas holidays and New Year's to distance, because we've been able to see that the trend that we saw coming out of Thanksgiving we didn't repeat that trend on the other side of that. And so we're really grateful to be able to be in a position where we can have a much different conversation at this time than what we thought we possibly would have had people not done that. So we're grateful for that. And so with that, I'm going to conclude that mid-year report, just trying to give you feedback on the work that was done. And again, as you know, there's a lot of positive things that happened, and in context of everything of the conversations today, none of that would have been possible without the dedication and support of teachers, families with their students, and just the collective efforts have allowed us to continue to push things forward. You know, I'm just so proud after watching Dr. Hampton's presentation, talking about a lot of these things that have happened here, is just day in and day out, the incredible work that our teachers are doing to support families, and not just our teachers, our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers. While it's certainly been a challenging situation, I know that here in Kingsport, we will be able to weather this better than anywhere else in Tennessee, because we have the best people in Tennessee, and their heart was demonstrated in the presentation. And so I'm confident that we'll be able to utilize the resources that our representatives in the federal government are sending our way, so that we can develop plans and make effective use of those dollars to be able to help mitigate this down the line, and hopefully get that back in cycle really quickly. With that, I'll close my presentation.
Thanks, sir. Questions, comments?
Washington County Schools just voted to reopen their schools. 100% face-to-face.
So what, just because I don't know, and I'm new, is these measures, were these developed by you and your staff, and as directed by the school board, just kind of the general expectation of culture, how that helped?
Well, we were trying to, a lot of, like, this dashboard, was developed to try to be able to tell a story that there's a lot of things that happen inside the school system that don't just show up on the state report card. Because that's just what happens on test day. That happens on the state report card. And there's a lot of things that happen inside the school system that the state report card tells part of the story. We're trying to be able to tell the whole story. And so that's why this dashboard was developed.
Any other? We've completed our agenda. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're still on Thursday.
Yes, I should have said that. Budget hearings are taking place Thursday, all day Thursday. So if you have time and would like to sit in, principals and everybody will be making their way to Thursday. I can get that for you. I'll give you what time the principal are, things like that. Right now, we really, as I said, we really want to come, identify.